Hello, this is the writing practice. Welcome to the Rhetoric of Story. Before you go away telling yourself that this sounds like a really complicated course, I'm here to tell you that actually it's very, very simple. My name's Damien Walter. I'm your teacher for the Rhetoric of Story. When we were designing this course, we had a subtitle for it, and that subtitle was, "It's about the story, stupid." Not that I'm calling you stupid, or anybody, but as writers, sometimes we are. Sometimes we lose sight of what it is we're trying to do. There are so many details involved when you're writing a book and you're trying to craft the perfect sentence, or making a film and every shot needs to be exactly correct, or putting on a stage play and the lights have to be amazing in order to create the illusion of a world on the stage. And it's very easy to lose sight of the fact that all of these things, while very important, are all serving a much more fundamental purpose, and that's telling a story. It's about the story. When the audience come into the theatre or the cinema, or the reader picks up a big fat best-selling novel, it's the story that they're there for, and it's the story that they keep coming back for. And what we're really doing as writers is creating and crafting stories. That's our job. The aim of the Rhetoric of Story course, and we will come back to this term, the rhetoric of story, a little later in this introductory lecture. The aim of the course is to give you a really simple, straightforward introduction to the fundamentals of storytelling. This will apply if you're a brand new writer and you want to tell compelling stories. You might be a more advanced author. You might have many books in the world and want to review some of these issues, see them from a slightly different perspective, because to master storytelling, we have to keep coming back to these fundamentals. If you're a creative professional and you want to use storytelling within your industry, you'll find that this is also a really good course for you. I began thinking about the rhetoric of story about 20 years ago. I had spent the day in a Waterstones bookshop reading a book. At the time, I was a student. I could not afford to buy the book. So I spent the whole day in the bookshop reading it, and I was completely immersed in the world that the story created. For my entire life, I'd loved stories. One of my earliest memories is watching Star Wars on an old VHS cassette recorder, which we actually borrowed from the family who owned it so I could see the end of the story. That's how passionate I was about Star Wars. The bookshelves in our family home, which had all kinds of weird historical fiction and sci-fi novels, and a huge range of books and stories that I read from a very, very young age. So like you, I'm sure, I've had this passion for stories for my whole life. And there I was. I just walked out of the Waterstones after a whole day spent reading this book. And I realised, with the traffic and the buses roaring past me on the high street, that whilst I was really absorbed in this story, I had no idea how it worked. I could read wonderful stories. I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know fundamentally how writing and storytelling worked. And so I made it my quest from that time to develop a really full understanding of the art and craft of storytelling. I've done all kinds of things in pursuit of that quest. I completed an undergraduate and postgraduate degree. I've worked in a number of theatre companies, touring productions around the UK. I've worked as a script reader, looking at piles of dozens or hundreds of scripts to look for great storytelling for local theatres. I've also been really involved with teaching creative writing, and I've done that in all kinds of settings, from community centres to old people's homes, primary schools to prisons. And I've worked with all kinds of different people to develop their writing practice and their understanding of their own stories. I've been very fortunate to study at the Clarion Writers Workshop at the University of California in San Diego with some really great writers, including Kelly Link and one of my personal heroes, Neil Gaiman. I'm well known for my writing with The Guardian, where I write a regular column on sci-fi books and novels. And throughout that time, I've been publishing and writing short stories. And one of the key things I've learned on my journey to understand storytelling much better is that when we struggle with storytelling, whether it's myself, whether it's writers I've helped to edit, whether it's writers I've read in the slush pile, when we struggle with storytelling, it's because we have forgotten or we lack an understanding of the basic fundamentals of how storytelling works. And even though we live in a world where we're surrounded by stories, and there's thousands of years of histories of storytelling, which we're going to take a quick look at, those basic fundamentals have remained unchanged. They're the rhetoric of storytelling, and they're what we're looking at on this course.